Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. My name is Mark Hornell. I live at 1026 Clare Street in the Gonzales neighborhood. I'm a 64-year-old ex-city planner, and I'm here speaking in support of the Missing Middle Housing Initiative. I just wanted to provide a little bit of background. 10 years ago, when I worked for the City of Victoria, I led the initiative to develop the new official community plan, a process that engaged more than 6,000 Victorians in trying to define a vision for the future of this city. One of the initiatives amongst a whole range of things that came from that is the notion of trying to increase, through infill and redevelopment, the range of attached and ground-oriented housing forms in our traditional neighborhoods. That's a long time ago, and it certainly has taken a while to get to this point, but I think we're at a point where we really need to make a decision. I'm not really going to speak about the planning side of this very much tonight. I reviewed the background information prepared by staff. I think it provides a comprehensive and supportable foundation to move ahead to implement the vision. What I'd like to share with you is just a couple of stories that relate to my own experience and experience in our neighborhood that I think bear on this issue. One of the things that the background information provided was information showing that residents in the family forming years continue to move away from Victoria. 25 years ago, my late wife and I were expecting our first child, and we were able to buy our first home in Victoria where we'd moved the previous year. We found our house on Clare Street, a 1947 900 square foot bungalow, which was at the absolute limit of our capacity to pay and cost approximately 3 times our annual gross household income. Were we that young family in the market today, with an income adjusted upward to reflect wage increases over the past 25 years, that same house would cost approximately 10 times our gross annual household income. Typical young families starting out, even those with good professional salaries, simply cannot afford single detached houses in the City of Victoria. They need more choice in the housing market with access to a yard of some kind and schools to be able to buy into or even rent in this market. In some ways, my street, Clare Street, typifies the kind of diverse housing proposed in the Missing Middle Initiative. We have 2 3-story apartment buildings on the corners with Oak Bay Avenue, duplexes on the corners with Brighton Avenue, and a great many houses with 1 or in some cases 2 secondary suites in between. One large lot on our street was developed into 2 small lot singles, although the initial proposal was for a triplex. All of this is within an easy walk of 4 schools, shopping, community services, and public transit. Clare Street is the kind of street many young families would love to live on, like our former neighbors Dan and Faye and their 2 young children, who rented a ground-level basement suite a few doors over. They were on the waiting list for at least 1 proposed townhouse development in the Gonzales neighborhood that's been caught up in the rezoning process for at least 2 years. These proposed market townhouses were by no means affordable, I think, by anybody's metric, but Dan and Faye could see a way to carry a mortgage on one and were prepared to trade off less physical space for the chance to live in a neighborhood they'd grown to love. To cut the story short, they couldn't wait any longer for the rezoning process to reach a positive conclusion and decided instead to move to Comox, where they were able to buy a house and where both could work. They will no doubt have a good life in Comox and are the kind of new residents any community would be glad to have, including Victoria. I've heard older Victorians over the years say many times that young people shouldn't expect to be able to live here until they've gone away, made their fortune, and then, in their 40s and 50s, move back. I think this is an incredibly short-sighted point of view. Quite apart from the role young families play in keeping our schools full and our economy ticking, they enhance our overall quality of life. One of the pleasures of living on Clare Street these past 25 years has been to see 2 generations of young children grow up. In its way, losing Dan and Faye and their kids to Comox was a small tragedy for our street. We need to provide more kinds of housing so that people like Dan and Faye can stay. Implementing the Missing Middle Housing Initiative can do this. In closing, as a now older, retired resident of Victoria, I would encourage those of us who had the good fortune to buy in 25, 30, or 50 years ago, not to squat on our neighborhoods like dragons on a hoard of gold, fending off all comers and clinging tightly to an apparently comfortable status quo. The kind of infill and redevelopment proposed respects neighborhood character, in my view, and the human scale of the streets we love. Cities change over time, and this initiative charts a way for Victoria to change in a positive, incremental way that will enable new generations to also live, work, and raise their families here. For this better future, I encourage Council to vote to fully implement the Missing Middle Housing Initiative. Thank you.